So it's uber premium. This is built for who? Who is the target golfer?
This is for the very affluent golfer, who likely plays at a country club and is willing to pay a premium for, they say, performance. It really is like just, look at me, look at what I got. I paid a lot of money for it.
Suck it. Yeah. All right, everybody. Tony Covey, Chris Nickel, that's us. No putts given. How's everybody living? We're wearing blue shirts today, Tony. Is there any reason for that?
No.
None.
There is not. I'll tell you something. So here's my random story of the week. So I want to say last weekend, not the one that just happened, the weekend before,
okay,
we had the final match in our Tuesday match play league, but we had to schedule it and play it on a Sunday, all inconsequential. But I'm like, I'm going to look good for this match. So I put on long pants and a nice white shirt with gray accents. And then I put something similar to what you had, like a Cobra crew sweater type thing on over the top of it. So I had this nice navy and gray theme going on. I'm like, I look all right.
I look good.
Pull up to McGregor. There's my partner on the driving range, and he's basically dressed exactly the same as I am. And I'm just like, oh God, what do we do? So,
I can't.
The guys we're playing against, I'm like, I swear we did not plan this. We did not dress alike on purpose. Yeah.
All right.
Team sport.
So let's get it. Couple topics today, and I have a question on that. But a couple topics today. New Ping irons out. We're going to dive into those. New line of Callaway clubs, but with a familiar name. Before we get into that, did you guys win or lose your match?
We lost because I cannot putt.
Had nothing to do with how you were dressed.
No. I think that was probably that's what kept us in it. But yeah, I can't putt anymore. It's
done. Over.
I need snow. That's where I'm at. I'm like, I need
a break.
Snow.
Sometimes breaks are good.
I gotta try and play a couple times this week though. I got some stuff to try for We Tried It's, and I need to try that. Yes, I need to try that before, because it's like it is. One of them is a shoe, but it's not a snowshoe. So
a regular shoe,
golfing shoe.
Stay tuned. Ping is coming out. Has come out. Announced new I-230 irons and an iCrossover. We've seen the irons in particular out on the interwebs, and pros have been playing it. Ping staffers have been playing it for a number of months now, for sure. But before we get into some of the more specifics and details of it, quick overview, Tony. What are these all about? Why and who should even care?
This to me is one of the more interesting products on the market in a general kind of way, because it's I-Series, which for Ping is their Better Players Series. But as far as Better Players irons go, this one definitely trends. It's on that towards the game improvement side of that scale. So, Ping bills it, interesting tagline, clever. A player's iron everyone can play.
It's a lot of playing.
So I think it's in terms of handicap where it fits in the market. I think there's a solid range there that it covers. So kind of a good, not just middle of the market, trending slightly players, but middle of Ping's lineup offering as well. So it's a nice kind of middle of the road.
Yeah, so for people that maybe aren't as familiar with Ping's lineup, like you said, I-Series, that I tends to denote more of a better player's line. Where does this sit now in Ping's family? Because we have the I-59. Obviously, we have the Ping Blueprint, which is kind of its own thing a little bit, right? Where does this kind of sit?
Where are we in G Series? Is that 425 or 430?
425. Well, it's going to be 430 here at some point soon, right?
Eventually, for sure. Yeah, so this is kind of between that I-525 and G425, G30, whatever number we're gonna be on. It is kind of the one that straddles game improvement and players. But again, I-Series. So as far as Ping's concerned, players irons. But this is one of those ones where I think if you're a 15 handicap, you can probably play this comfortably. But so it's not. Yeah, when you take something like a Titleist T100, for example, that is also technically a player's iron. This is sort of the opposite end of the range from that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we've seen. I mean, I think about a player like Stuart Sink, Lee Westwood. You can throw out a number of different players' names. I know the I series prior to this I210 very very popular on both PGA Tour, but also popular on LPGA tours all over the place. So there's not really. I don't necessarily see that there's an upper limit in terms of better players saying, "Geez, you
I'm
know
too good for an
I'm too good for
I-230.
an I-230. I don't see that either. So in some ways, like I might want to almost argue that this is, is this Ping's most encompassing, or to quote Mitch Hedberg, right, all encompassingly, is this their most encompassing iron? Like, does this
Yes, I
cover?
think so. I like that. It is probably the broadest range of players, both in terms of the performance specification, but also in terms of how it looks, who it's going to appeal to. There's nothing huge. It's not a huge iron. It's not off-putting in that respect, but it's also not so small that it's overly intimidating. So it is. It's kind of a little sweet spot in the lineup, I think.
Yeah, and Ping isn't necessarily one that wows us with,
I'm
you
not
know,
wowed.
long press releases and a lot of pomp and circumstance and bright colors and things like that. But anything jump out to you about it in terms of specs, details, materials, those kind of things? Again, I know Ping, like I said, that's something I like about Ping is I don't expect a lot of flash and this. I expect, here's the information, here's why we did it, here's what we hope it does, here, this was the feedback, and there you go. Love it or hate it, da 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 da. But anything jump out to you?
Not not like jumping out of a bush screaming Halloween style. I mean, it's typical Ping. So, hey,
What
the
about
MOI,
jumping out of a bush like a
very,
little,
it's very polite jump out of the bush kind of thing. It's
like maybe an animal just kind of ambling out of a bush,
yeah,
like,
it just kind
oh,
of it's kind of wandered out and it's like, hey, I'm a little bit higher MOI, so I'm a little bit more forgiving, and we're getting a little more speed out of the face, so I'm 3 yards longer. That's our ballpark number here is plus 3 yards because of a little bit of extra speed and things like that. But it's like you said, it's pretty much a textbook Ping release in that there's just not a lot of hey, we've got this crazy new material or mixing materials is a story we're going to hear about as we move into the Callaway stuff and kind of
mm-hmm.
it's just nothing ever really audacious in a Ping press release. I was actually thinking about this before we hopped on. I'm like, in terms of like breakthrough technologies that Ping actually attempted to make some noise with, it's turbulators. And that's really kind of in the last 10 years, give or take, really. That's not to say they haven't made some really cool stuff and cool stuff that works and helps golfers. And, like I go back to the LST series and the driver lineup, especially for me, that's one that I think is really impressive. Hydro pearl finish, right?
Yeah.
Water repelling, which these irons have. We know that makes a huge difference. But in terms of like something that golfers can see, it's not going to be a red face. It's not. It's just hey, we made it more forgiving.
Yeah, I think two things that jumped out to me a little bit, like you said, it's not gonna, jump up and slap you in the side of the face or something like that. But one, I was kind of scrolling through and then I'm like, oh, we crested that $200 mark. So these are, 205 a
But that
stick,
is
which
205 MSRP, which is this weird thing that Ping habitually does. I'm like, just tell me how much it's going to cost at a store. And like, oh, we don't do that. So that is your MSRP, but typically your map, your minimum advertised price, your actual street price is going to be below that. I can't promise that at this particular point in time, but I would guess that our actual price is lower.
yep. So that's up, and they 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 made a note here in their press release to talk a little bit about modal analysis. And you know again, we don't often think about Ping in the same context as a Mizuno or a Strixon or something like that, where we're talking forged construction, soft feel, all these kind of things, etc. But the reason that part kind of jumped out to me a little bit was they mention the same type of process that we know these other companies use to help understand. And basically, with, when you hit a ball, right, it creates frequency, it creates vibration. And the whole idea of making something feel good is, as Kevin Nealon's right character in Happy Gilmore said, harness energy, block bad. Harness energy, Tony, block bad. So you don't want to eliminate all the vibrations coming through, right? Because that's when you tend to get these clubs that kind of feel really squishy or damp. Is kind of how I sense it, and just kind of like, eh, better players, they want some element of that vibration coming through. And if you curate that vibration in a way that is pleasing, right? You let through the good vibrations, you get this sensation at impact that people tend to resonate with and say, "Oh, that feels really, really good." So Ping says that they're paying attention to that on this one, maybe more so than other products they have in the past. But
Well, they've had a sound lab for a while. Again, going back to kind of that, I want to say it started with G400. That was kind of the first time I remember them talking about it. They didn't make a big deal out about it. They haven't talked about it as much as some others, but they are constantly analyzing these stuff, trying to dial in, as you say, these frequencies. Because as much as we say, hey, sound and feel is subjective, you can measure these things, and within that, there are frequency ranges and sort of amplitudes and peaks and valleys, and the way that these things all resonate. There are spots where it is generally accepted that, hey, if we're in this range, people are going to say this is what feels good. Most people, not everybody.
mhm.
And then if we kind of escape that one direction or the other, you get into that dead feel or that pitchy feel or whatever that is. So it's sort of, I guess it's using actual science to dial in what is often considered to be subjective.
Yeah, not
And
many
whether or not they
people.
did it, who knows? Because again, sometimes some
Yeah.
things don't live up to the billing. But
Well, yeah, not many people like nails on a chalkboard. It is subjective, but not many people like that, and you do tend to kind of find those things. But it's interesting that that's more of an emphasis, right? This time around, they also have a players crossover that they're pairing with this. I always really felt like in the past, like there's more disconnect, like just meaning that the crossover kind of sat at as its very own category, and now it feels like Ping is kind of, again, I'm going to compare it to Mizuno a little bit. When they kind of launched their irons and they put the MP Fly High in there as kind of part of that bundled iron release. Ping's doing that now, right, with this iCrossover players kind of design crossover.
yeah, and to me, the crossover is kind of always a little bit of a weird one because it was G series.
Mm-hmm.
Crossover has traditionally been a G series product, as we mentioned. G series, typically the game improvement side of the Ping iron franchise, and crossover by extension. Not a driving iron, but still kind of a driving iron. And
Sort of,
it,
yeah.
it always seemed out of place. And the story that Ping is telling is, hey, we went back and we looked at a bunch of Arcos data we have coming in, because now Ping has been integrated with the Arcos system for a few years now, starting to mine that data. And one of the things that they kind of pulled out of that is that, hey, it turns out that our crossovers are by and large being used by better players. And so why would that be a game improvement iron or part of a game improvement family when our data suggests that this is actually it should be more of an I series product? And so there's a little bit of a redesign here to make it more of a true I series offering. So I think this one's probably, to me, even more interesting than the i230, if for no other reason than the i230 is pretty much Ping steady as she goes, or this is actually a little bit of a departure from what they've done in the past.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and by going into that I series, expect to see less offset, little less offset, maybe little thinner top line, but definitely more compact heel to toe. I think they mentioned that they did that in the long irons as well, in just general 230, coming from 210 to the 230 product, that a little bit reduced heel toe length. So if that's kind of been you and you like that product and you're in that Ping ecosystem or looking at that, this one should be a little more playerish to your eye than the previous crossovers, right?
Yeah, and the other thing too is they've added an adjustable hosel to this one. So this will be the first time you can actually get your wrench out and have a little fun, tune your crossover to kind of dial in your preferred flight, typical billing. But again, hey, we've got a stock range, and this is one of those things. It's an odd one, but I've always appreciated the companies who've made these adjustable utility clubs. Remember when Cobra launched its first one, Mike
Yeah.
Yagler over at Cobra at the time said, the ball flight that you want, it's somewhere in this range. And so by being able to kind of just make those small tweaks at the hosel, maybe you just need it to fly a little higher, launch a little lower, more spin, less spin,
Whatever.
whatever it happens to be, you have that option to kind of tune without having to throw it on a Mitchell machine or something like that. So it's
Yeah.
just kind of, we talked about it when we talked about the drivers, right? One of the things that Ping always wants to do with every new release is, to the extent possible, extend the fitting capabilities, extend the range of the golfers that can be fit into this product if indeed it is the right product. And so by adding adjustability of the hosel, you do get a bit of that, a little extra, little wider fitting range, easier to try shafts, obviously, little things like that. So small thing, not revolutionary, but I think a nice little value add there.
Mm-hmm. Be very interested to see in that better player category. Like you said, it's the whole, I don't know if we've talked about this before, but creating a club based on course big data, like I said, mining the data from Arcos. We're talking, millions of golf shots, and saying, hey, how are players actually using a club as opposed to, in an isolated testing environment, right, or in a particular trial, situation, but over time, what are players really doing or not doing with these clubs, and then how can we make a better product for that? That type of analysis really hasn't been available until now.
Yeah, I think it is. We're starting to see data, and in this case, Arcos data in particular. Obviously, Cobra's been mining it the longest. Ping is now in that ecosystem. Others are slowly starting to work their way into that space, and now you're
Yeah.
starting to see sort of that real world. This is what golfers are actually doing with our products. These are the actual results, and using that data to influence the next generation of designs. And there comes a point where I start to wonder if you are one of these companies that isn't Arcos connected, or even looking at it broader, if you don't have a means to capture on-course data from the golfers who bought your equipment and use those insights to inform future products, I think you're probably going to start to fall behind to some degree.
Yeah, and you certainly can't. I mean, what a great data set to be able to leverage. And you think about it from a testing perspective, it makes perfect sense. It makes me wonder, what else have they already learned or been able to glean from that they haven't been able to implement just yet? You know, be
I
really
think you'll
interesting
see
to.
it trickling in. I think, again,
Yeah.
we've talked about it starting to influence what Cobra does to an extent. Certainly it's going to, Ping says, yes, it is influencing what we're doing. And I think it gets to the point now, if you're one of the other large golf companies and you don't have some sort of means to gather this type of insight from your customers, yeah,
Yeah.
I don't know. It's not.
A little shocked, Tony. A little shocked that they haven't just said, "Screw it, we're all making blades because you need to learn how to be better ball
None of
strickers."
these guys are great ball strikers.
You're not
That's
gonna.
just going to make exclusively blades until we solve that problem.
Yep, that's what we've figured out. So, Tony, there's premium, semi-premium, mostly premium, uber premium, Callaway, Great Big Bertha, a familiar name, no doubt.
Just
What are
keep
they
going
doing,
back to that.
Tony?
It's a gift that keeps giving, right? Great Big Bertha, Big Berthas.
What on God's green earth? What are we doing,
Trying to
Callaway?
hide
What
the
is
light.
going
Look,
on here?
I don't know how well it's going to come through in this lighting, because even with photos, it's kind of tough. Oh, it's kind of showing up there.
Eh,
That
is that
color
green?
is.
Is that
I call
green?
it. It's technically sage, but I call it money green.
The color of money.
That is money green right there, guys.
A
Let's
little,
a
a
little more
little
rotation. We'll try and
sage.
get to. We'll have our video guy actually throw some real photos up here.
Yeah.
That's a
At,
joke. I'm the video guy.
it's not a joke. He will. Uh, at first glance, I like the green.
Well, That's your
Do you
opinion.
like it?
I
Do
don't.
you like? You
I don't.
don't? Why
No.
not? Well,
Uh,
let's get to the green in a second.
and
What
part
the
of it
what
is
the
too
hell
is
is this?
just on different lighting conditions. Sometimes the green, and you'll see it in our photos too. It gets a little more of a grayish kind of.
See, I kind of like that. But
Yeah,
anyway,
it's not.
let's.
It's not bad. I mean, it is. I mean, I have seen way uglier drivers. I'm probably going to see way uglier drivers in this year. It's just not.
So
It
what is
doesn't
this?
doesn't
What
bother
is
me.
this line? Great Big Bertha. Give me the 30-second part first, and then let's dive in. What is
How
this thing?
how about I just tell you a story?
Why don't you tell me a story,
So
Tony?
it's an inside joke, and it's meant in a good, fun, positive way.
Oh boy.
But what Callaway does for its media presentations, its launches, is they give you a YouTube video, and it's really good. In fact, I wish more companies did it, but they just give you the technical presentation where they go through and, as the name suggests, present the product. So they got, D Nev's their brand manager, I believe is his title, something like that. And then they always bring in somebody from either R&D or somebody from R&D to kind of talk about the products in a technical level. But one of the things we joke about is how often in these presentations the words premium, ultra premium, these type of things get thrown around in any Callaway presentation. And so we've joked about the idea of have a Callaway drinking game where during these presentations, every time the word premium is used, you drink. And if it's some sort of qualified premium, extra premium, ultra premium, you drink twice. And with the Great Big Bertha lineup, I think I probably would have been passed out on the floor within 3 slides. So if that
Be
kind of tells
dead.
you where this fits in the lineup, absolutely.
You'd be dead. You'd be dead. So
Yeah, it's
this
a
is the Uber Ultra
extra
Mega
super duper.
Mega Premium line with a Super Duper Extra Mega Premium price tag too. So just let's get that out of the way. For driver 700, fairway woods 500, hybrids 449. That's by design. What am I
Irons
getting?
$450 each.
A stick. Okay, so
Let's like Bob Parsons is shaking his head right now. I'm like, what are you guys doing?
all right.
Kaboom, baby.
So kaboom, baby is right. So what do I get for that, right? So we talk about price all the time. Price is it's relative. It's relative to value. It's relative to performance. It's relative to expectation, and perhaps for a certain target demographic, it makes very little difference at all. You and I balk at things when it's like, geez, we're at the PGA show and it's $19 for a Chick-fil-A sandwich and a pop, and we're looking
I
around
wish
for
you could. Well, no, because I mean, in fairness, there was one year where they let Chick-fil-A come in and they had carts
yeah,
like on the show floor, and the
yeah.
chicken sandwiches were like $6. It was fantastic, but most everywhere else, it's like, oh yeah, you want a chicken sandwich that you. I'm not saying it's going to give you food poisoning, but you're certainly going to feel like maybe you got a
50-50.
hint of it. Yeah,
Yeah.
that'll be $20. Like it's a
That's
scam.
that's when
That's
we
a
were
whole other. That's a whole other episode. The
now we
scam
were
of PGA show scams.
we were typically looking, I believe, at that time for Harry Arnett to come buy us lunch
No,
because it was like, wait a minute.
does Municipal go to the PGA show?
I hope so. We'll
I'll have to
see.
work that out.
All
Call
right, so
Harry up.
what do you get? What do you get for this? Let's try to digest this line. So it's Uber Premium. This is built for who? Who is the target golfer?
So, for better or worse, and part of me appreciates that Callaway spelled it out, and the other part of me is like, oh, that's something about it just doesn't feel right. But by Callaway's own admission, this is for the very affluent golfer. It's for the affluent golfer who likely plays at a country club and is willing to pay a premium for. They say performance. We can haggle a little bit about that, but this falls in that space. I learned this phrase from my Golf Spy reader back when PXG was doing this kind of thing. It's conspicuous consumerism. It
It's a good
really is
phrase.
like just like
Yeah,
look at me, look at what I got. I paid a lot of money for it. There you
suck it. Yeah,
go.
I
I think
mean,
so, and that's where this fits. But in terms of beyond sort of that piece of the demographics, it is an entire product line for the moderate swing speed, slow swing speed, sub
yeah,
85, arguably sub 80 mile an hour golfer. So
yep.
that's the target for everything. And
Yep.
You can talk about the fairway woods. I look at the price here, and I struggle a little bit with the driver.
It's
And I'll
700 or
touch on that.
just
Yeah, I struggle with that. The irons at 450, it's a stretch, but if I wanted to, I could get there. Again, we can
hmm
go into this in detail. I don't
yeah.
know where you feel like the fairway woods and hybrids fit into this equation, but I'm like irons. I'm like, yeah. Driver. I'm like,
See, I think it doesn't matter because I
it doesn't. Definitely doesn't.
and instead like I want to give kudos to Callaway, and that's where like I said, how you feel about the conspicuous consumerism or component of it is one thing, but here's who we're after, here's why we're after it, and we can kind of fill in some of those blanks that make sense. And I get it, right? You see how many other products are marketed in much the same way. Now, maybe they go about it differently, but Callaway doesn't want somebody, pulling these out of their Honda Civic, right? They want them pulling it out of their Benz or their Maserati or whatever, right? So they want to put themselves in that, cornucopia of consumerism, and you're putting on this type of watch, you're eating at that type of restaurant, playing at this type of course, and Callaway Big Bertha is now part of that ecosystem. So I like that. I like that they differentiate the color a little bit with going with the sage green. I think that's a smart move. Now, the part that I shirk at a little bit, it's like, okay, is the performance component attribute of it just by making something more expensive, that doesn't necessarily make it any better performing. And
Yeah, and
so
this was a
that's the part
case.
where I get a little like, okay, again, you can
It
take
was it
a
to me. A lot of this reads like a price point in search of a technology. And so that's again where I struggle for. Ultimately, it doesn't matter. It's for who it is, and price things cost what they cost. And if you don't want to spend it, don't spend it.
right,
But again, with the irons, I can kind of get there with the driver. It's to me it's a struggle because there are so many competitive products in that space, priced at market average. In some cases, when you get to like a Cleveland Launcher Series, for example, um, Cobra, what was F Max, again, whatever they're
right,
calling it now,
right,
um,
kills
also
it.
in that
Yeah,
space, far less money. This is more of kind of a Zexio competitor, and in terms of what are you really paying for other than to pay for something that somebody else doesn't want to pay for? I don't know. Again, with the driver, I struggle because I look at this. So one of the talking points with the driver is it's about 30 grams lighter
mm-hmm.
than the Rogue. I'm like, all right, that's not nothing.
No, it's a
Titleist
chunk.
TSR, or excuse me, TSI one, 40 grams lighter. And I'm not saying 40 is better than 30. I'm sure these are design philosophies and where you want to come in.
Right,
But then I look at, all right, how much of this weight is coming from the Callaway engineering? And they've done some interesting stuff, right? They're first time ever, and we've talked about this before, probably a year plus ago. Callaway loves to do things for the first time. They love to be first and do
yep,
things nobody else has done, and that's cool. But ultimately, do those things have any benefit? In this case, we're mixing our triaxial carbon crown with what they call a forged composite on the sole.
mm-hmm.
Forged composite isn't new. It's what they used on all of their drivers up until I think like 2015 may have been the last one. So it's a material they've used before. They're
Right,
just putting it in a different place. Hey, cool. But when I actually weigh heads, there's 9 grams of difference between this Callaway Great Big Bertha head and one of the Rogue heads I have here. So
so 10
nine
grams.
grams 9 grams of engineering attributable to Callaway doing something fundamentally different, and the other 21 is coming from components, lighter grips, lighter shafts. So there's not a whole lot of extra engineering that went into this that manifests itself in any tremendous way.
Mm-hmm.
And again, maybe this triaxial crown pairing with the forged composite is something they're starting to do and may have benefits in other product lines. But I'm not seeing a tremendous weight savings from it here. As I said, other companies can get just as much weight, if not more, out of the head without kind of mixing carbon fibers and doing things like that. So there's nothing remarkable in that. Again, using jailbreak, they're throwing every bit of technology they have at it.
Yep.
But this is established technology. Nothing that sort of elevates it to that price point.
Mm-hmm.
The counter to my own argument is, well, you know what? If I go out and buy a driver today at retail and get something that's going to fit me, it's going to cost me a lot more than $700 because I'm going to pay that shaft upgrade. There's no way around it. So whether we start at 600, whether we start at 550, 500 even, I'm probably going to eclipse that $700
Pretty
barrier.
easily.
So then it just comes down to, hey, does this UST helium nano core shaft justify a $100 increase? And if you're looking this in terms of strictly of performance, that's a decision you have to make. For me, no, it absolutely does not. There's not $100 worth of additional value in that shaft. It's going to get spun, and it's going to be just like the previous helium, where it's, out of the gate, it's exclusive in this amazing thing for low speed players, and then you're going to see it filter in everywhere as the de facto stock low swing speed option. I have a feeling that's the path it's on, because that's where UST makes its money, in the metalwood shafts, in that part of the shaft market. So I don't see $100 worth of value there.
Yeah.
You can talk to me about the hybrids and fairway woods if you want. So again, interesting offering. I just can't get to $700.
Yeah, and the part that I was wrestling with is within this context of, trickle up or trickle down. And I guess what I mean by that is we saw this when Titleist came out with Concept, both the first iteration and second iteration. And we said, okay, there's an inherent difficulty or challenge or difficult conversation you're going to need to have when you do something like that, which is, if we take our best, quote unquote, best technology, and now we've kind of been here, and now we say, hey, we have this product now. Well, how do you convince everybody else that you're still putting your best thinking engineering materials into the stock product? You can't. So in some ways, right, Callaway in a sense is hamstrung by that with this, like you're saying, there isn't, it's everything. It's the entire kitchen sink of what they have, right? I mean, jailbreak, AI, forged carbon composite, go down the list. It's absent a new technology. And I think part of that is because then they don't have to answer that question of, hey, if you put this into that product, what about everybody else, right? Or what about, this isn't designed for the tour. This isn't designed for the better players. I totally get that. This isn't designed for the, the best of the best in terms of players that are out there. So, okay, but now you have a situation where, and we saw this with Epic Star, and they kind of geared that more towards the Japanese market, which made sense because oftentimes they expect to pay a little bit more. So it's like, hey, we can do a lot of things, put a higher price tag on it, and that might actually be a good thing. It will resonate with a particular demographic a little bit more. But, in this case, I mean, getting to 450 or 500 on a fairway wood, I think the same struggle exists, because when you get back to the performance discussion, and I'll put this question back on you. What drives performance for the target demographic? Meaning, if the idea is to hit the ball, let's say in this case, further and straighter, right? What's going to ultimately have the greatest impact on performance for your slow swing speed player that's, a 12 to a 20? Call him a bogey golfer.
Yeah, it's going to be things like weight. Let's save weight. Again, just about every company other than Ping has something in this lightweight range now. I guess TaylorMade probably doesn't either, but that's your key, right? Save weight, add length. We talk about with Titleist swinging the heaviest hammer. Well, the can also sort of add a bit of power by swinging a longer hammer, and that's the theory here. So we're gonna save weight. We're gonna give you speed through length, lighter weight, longer length. You're gonna swing it faster, and then ultimately we just need you to hit it higher with a bit more spin. And some of that's going to be loft. Some of that's going to be, again, the shaft you put in here. But I mean, if you look, let's talk about the shaft market as a whole. The stuff that commands a premium is typically the things that use exotic materials to strategically stiffen regions so that you can have kind of these low launch designs, these low torque designs, these things
that are also lighter weight. Yeah.
These things that hold up to speed, which is not right. You're not seeing the equivalent of a Ventus Black, for example, for a lower swing speed player, because it doesn't need to exist, because you're not putting those same type of forces on the club. So it is typically, for me, very difficult to justify any type of exotic upgrade for this type of player to begin with. And then, I just don't see this Helium Nano Core as an exotic upgrade. Again, I think this is, we've hinted at this before, but this idea of, hey, we're not necessarily doing made for shafts the way we used to, the faux Ventus and the TaylorMade notwithstanding, but we are seeing these things as, look, we're gonna make the shaft for the club makers. It is an OEM shaft. It's a made for shaft, but because we don't want to make it so obvious that that's what it is, we're also going to sell it in the aftermarket at an elevated premium price point. But again, it's just that. It's not anything in the design to command that price point. It's a price point and a market placement to make it look better in the OEM club lineup. And we've seen a lot of that. I think that's kind of what this is. And again, my expectation is you'll see this shaft everywhere. And again, for the right golfer, I think it probably is a pretty good offering, a really solid offering. That's what the original Helium was.
Mm-hmm.
But it doesn't command a high price point.
Yeah, and it's so back to the performance discussion. Is there anything in there that you look at and say from a proprietary standpoint or something like, again, I'm going back to Titleist a little bit with concept series because of the unobtainium, right? The the metal that they use that I still don't know what it is. I haven't been able to get anybody to disclose that to me publicly or privately, but I know it's expensive. I know they have to get it in certain batch sizes and things like that. So there's at least something there of mystery driving that conversation. Do we have that situation here? Is there something that you can point to that you say, hey, I don't see how another company could replicate at a different or at a similar price point?
Well, I mean, other than the sort of your standard suite of Callaway technologies now, your jailbreak, your AI face, right? You're replicating your own technology, and you don't get to raise the price for replicating your own technology. So, no, I don't see anything in the metal woods, that justifies the price point.
Yeah,
in the metal woods. The irons, like I said, the irons. Curiosity, I think 450 is high.
No doubt.
Maybe even trending absurd, but again, if the market will accept it, and same thing with the drivers, fairway woods, and hybrids. If the market will accept it, that's cool. But at least with the hybrid, there's the irons I can point to, like, oh my god. And I don't expect anybody gets excited about tungsten. It just, no matter how many times it's stamped on a club,
I get thrilled.
I mean, when I say 145 grams of tungsten in iron, like that is massive tungsten. I mean, it was just a couple of years ago where I think Titleist was putting in 50 grams and then 80 grams. And they're like, oh my God, look how much tungsten. I'm like, well, 145 grams, 133% more than Rogue ST Max. And
that's a lot of tungsten.
It is. And again, for the target player, it makes sense to really kind of drive that CG as low as it possibly can to get that high launch. And it's 100% titanium construction, titanium body, titanium face. So, that adds cost, maybe not all the cost, but that's the thing. If you've got, let's say you've got an iron you sell for $200 a stick and you put in technology to another iron that costs $10 more an iron. Well, you're not going to sell that one for $210 an iron. Like you're going to jump a price bracket. And so I think that's here. What we've done is jumped a couple price brackets. I think in terms of the aesthetics, again, it's not my style, but I can see where you look at that and go, yeah, this looks like an Uber Extra Ultra Premium kind of product.
Mm-hmm.
So I like it. Again, 450 may be a stretch. I'm not the target audience,
Yeah.
but I can almost get there. Little things commercially pure titanium, and who knows, it could be a thing that everybody uses, and Callaway just decided to talk about it, which is something
Yeah.
we see in the industry quite a bit. Where, hey,
We
you know
do.
what? Like there's this thing that everybody else is doing, but nobody's mentioned it before, so we're going to put a stake in the ground here and claim it as our own. But again, I can kind of get there with the iron, even at 450. But yeah,
I
metalwoods,
mean,
not so much.
yeah, and like I said, you're not the target demographic. I'm certainly not the target demographic. I would love to hear some people's thoughts, right?
Yeah,
Like
let us know.
if you
I mean,
are in that group, because like I said, at the end of the day, our thoughts on the prices and stuff, okay, whatever, probably doesn't matter. In the sense, like I said, they're not built for us. So if that's you,
you
right?
kind of have
Like,
to throw performance out the window a little bit here. No, look, it's a Callaway driver.
yeah.
I will accept that as a Callaway driver, it's going to be a pretty good performer. Like it's
Mm-hmm.
very rare that a Callaway driver isn't.
Right.
But
I want to
it's
know too, like this idea of it being under, again, Callaway and Great Big Bertha, right? Like those names that resonate in terms of a brand and brand presence. Are they able to crest and get into a different demographic, different price point, and be more of that aspirational luxury type item? Like I personally always struggled when I would see like a Toyota Land Cruiser because they're so expensive. I'm like, I am not paying eighty,
is
ninety
Toyota an
thousand dollars.
aspirational brand?
Right. I'm not paying 80, $90,000 for a Toyota SUV, right? Now, there's some people. I was having an argument with my brother the other day about this. We were talking about the Kia, a couple, I don't know, a couple cars things or whatever, and he's like, "Yeah, but it has these specs and that engine." Da, da, da." I'm like, "But it's still a Kia. Am I going to pay Mercedes prices for a Kia, regardless of even if you could justify every single dollar of
At the
it?"
end of the day, a Genesis is a Hyundai, right? That's
Yeah, regardless of whether or not, I mean, and again, let's assume you can. You can justify every single dollar in terms of impact, performance, whatever the case is. Can Callaway be both a luxury, aspirational brand and the dominating brand that it is in the consumer space, that wider breadth of, again, just general, golfer. I mean, it is, largest company, right, whatever in the world, but can it under the same name have that piece to it, that aspirational piece to it? I don't know. I think Titleist, like I don't associate Titleist with concept at all, ever. I just I don't. But yeah, I mean, isn't that kind of why Cleveland, Strixon, Zexio have three different pieces to it?
and even those pieces aren't this far spread apart. And again, $100, and I don't know for a fact, but I'm going to assume that Callaway, as it continues to reaffirm itself as a premium golf brand, is not going to come into the market below Titleist with its mainstream driver. It's not going to be below TaylorMade again. So I
No,
think
no way.
six, and maybe the new stuff will come out at 700, and this will just not seem as ridiculous because that's just how much Callaway prices its drivers for. But I think six is as low as it goes. I think that's who they are as a brand, and so yeah, it's tough to see that kind of separation. And again, the jump to the $450 irons is kind of at that level. But maybe it is. Hey, today we're this, and tomorrow we're that. That's essentially what PXG is trying to do. Right? We're a
Hmm.
premium band. No, we're bargain basement. Well, but our
Right.
wedges are 450 each. And,
But
you know,
PXG started up here. It
right.
started up here. It didn't start anywhere in the middle, right?
It's
I mean,
easier not to fight gravity.
yeah. I mean, PXG started up here and eventually had, like you said, we
But
we
to be
talked
fair,
about.
too, this is something that has been under various names, ubiquitous to the Callaway lineup for several generations. Right? They did the Epic irons, and you mentioned the
Epic
GBB
Star.
Star, and I mean, go back to even before PXG, right? The Big Bertha Fusion irons.
Yeah,
It's not a stretch to say, hey, they're doing anything radically different than they've done before. And on one hand, hey, that's good. But also when I look at the technology, I also say they're not doing anything radically different than they've done before to get there. But again, it's a price point play. There is an audience there. We know it. And so, hey, if that's you, more power to you. Just from a performance perspective, it's a struggle for me to get to these price points.
Yeah. One last argument on the iron piece. Like you said, it's easier. You can get a little closer to the irons. I think for me, I think about it another way as well, which is when you buy an iron, you're buying probably, let's say, at least 5 of them. So call it 5 to 6, right? And you're typically not buying 5 drivers, right? You're going to buy 1. So fairway wood, probably the same thing. So let's say that 700. Let's say that 700.
4 metalwoods, 5 irons. That's pretty.
That seems fair. But let's say even that $700 is $100 beyond, right? And let's say that the 450 and 500 for the hybrids and fairway woods respectively is even $150 above what a commensurate one would be in a different place in their line, or in that kind of spot in the line, but from a Titleist or Ping or whomever. Irons, that's, easily $200 per club more than the lightweight version. So if you're buying 5, that's $1,000 difference. So to me, it's like, yeah, on an individual one, maybe not. But man, for a set of irons, the difference between $1,400 and $2,400 is a much, much larger total difference once you get to the register. Again, the target buyer probably doesn't care. That $1,000 maybe.
What's that line from Forrest Gump? Right? There's only so much money you need. The rest is just for showing off.
Yeah.
This is the showing off money. This is what you do with it.
Yeah. I guess if you spent, you spent $500, $800 on, took people out to dinner last night, then these are for you. That just doesn't, that's not my world. So I don't know, but yeah. Any final thoughts on that, Tony?
No, I struggle to hate it. Like I don't. There's nothing inherently bad about it.
No.
I don't think there's anything inherently wonderful about it either. It just kind of is what it is, and it's if not for the price point, I guess that's the thing. If not for the price point, I might be talking about 145 grams of tungsten green paint and not much else.
Yeah. I like the green. I guess we'll see. But yeah, if that's you, or somebody that this club is for, again, that 12 to 20 handicap, drives a nice car, plays at a really nice course, typically has a little bit more disposable income than Tony and I do combined. Post your comments. Let us know. Tony Covey, GolfSpy T, Chris Nickel, GolfSpy C. We're out on the interwebs. Let us know your thoughts, feelings, hopes, and dreams. And until next time, we out.